Good morning, church. We continue in our sermon series on God and family, and today we have a guest speaker with us in the person of Mr. Jason Wong. Now, Jason founded the Yellow Ribbon Project in 2004 and the Dads for Life movement in 2009, and he has spent 23 years in public service, working with prisoners, abused children, and at-risk youths. Now, since leaving the public service 10 years ago, he's been spending his time championing family, mentoring fathers and the next generation. He is married to Donna, and they have 2 young adult children. Would you put your hands together and join me as we welcome Mr. Jason Wong?
Thank you, Pastor Jeremy. Good morning, church. You know, the introduction, documents my last 40 years as a Christian. 40 years ago, I wasn't a Christian, of course. I was a young man on my way to Australia. And it was in Australia, in my first year there, that I found God. And it was the Aussies, the Australians, that actually discipled me. And why I mention that, usually I don't say that, but because I'm in the international school, so I saw just now the school ministry. I think it is a very, very important ministry. If the Australians had not reached out, if the Australians have not supported the student population from overseas, I think many of us would not be where we are today. So it seems that now Singapore being an Antioch, God is sending many overseas students here. And so we do have an important role to reach out, to disciple them, so that one day, some of them may stay, many of them will go back to their own country. And they will then maybe start the Yellow Ribbon Project or start the Dads for Life over there. So a very good morning to all of you. Today we are talking about sex. Yeah, it's a hard topic to talk about. When I grow up, nobody talked about sex with me. I'm not sure about you, whether your parents talked about sex with you. No, when I asked my mom and dad, where do I come from? Rubbish dump. They don't talk about sex, but I have 7 other siblings, so yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of sex going around in the house, but well, all come from the rubbish dump. Yeah, but where do we start? Right? You talk about sex or sexuality. Of course, we have to go back to the Bible. What does God think about sex? I still remember the only time my dad talked to me about sex was, I was on my way to Australia at the airport. Of course, I have to give some good advice, right? Because 4 years in those days, no WhatsApp, no face, no Zoom time, Once you are gone, you don't know what happened to you, right? So at the airport, my mom said, Ayong, no ang mo sin, no ang mo bo, okay? It's like, no foreigner gods and no foreigner spouse, traditional Chinese families, anything that's foreign, she may lose a son. I said, yes, Mom. And then my dad said, no smoking, no drinking, no womanizing, no alcohol, no drugs. Okay? I said, yes, Dad. Those are some of the best advice that I had, and I follow those advice, right? So when he said no womanizing, basically don't go and sleep around, He was talking about sex and sexuality. And when it comes to us Christians, where do we get our advice from? Especially if our parents don't give it to us. We need to go back to the Bible. And where do we start? Which passage? I think it's good that we go back to the beginning when everything started. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, increase in number, fill the earth, subdue it. Be fruitful. Be fruitful means have lots of sex. So God actually started this topic right at the Garden of Eden. And now let me break it down a bit to our language. God's design for sexuality, I will call it sexual ethics. There are boundaries, there are certain do's and don'ts. That's God's design. What about man's desire? Man's desire results in the sexual revolution. We don't want to follow what God says. It's like, can you imagine if I were on my way to Australia, I say, I don't care about what my dad say, man. I'm going to vape, I'm going to smoke, I'm going to take drugs, I'm going to womanize, I'm going to sleep around. I don't care what he says. That would be man's desire. God's design, sexual ethics. I think some of us play games, watch football. Even if you don't play football, you watch football. There are rules. There are certain boundaries. There's a referee, there are linesmen, there are lines. And what if I were to play a game on the field and I say, I don't want the referee, such a ball, every now and then he'll blow the whistle, spoil the game. Or I don't want the linesman. Or I don't even want the lines. Just let's redraw the lines. Now, if we remove the referee, remove the linesman, remove the lines, what's going to happen after 5 minutes? After 10 minutes? After half an hour? What do you think will happen if you were to be watching such a game? It'll be chaos. Chaos. I guess that's what happens when we have the man's desire and we want to do whatever we want, however we want, with whoever we want, whenever we want. That would be the sexual revolution. Now, let's explain a bit further God's design, which is sexual ethics. If we want children, and God said be fruitful, to have children, we must first have sex. But God's design is that if we want to have sex, it has to be within the confines of marriage. Monogamous, permanent. And why is marriage so important? Because marriage binds a man and a woman together so that the children will have a stable environment to grow up in. What does a child need? A child just needs a father who loves him, a mother who loves him, and a father and mother who loves each other. That's all a child needs. But even then, it's not easy to have nowadays. I worked in the prisons for 17 years. I saw what happens when a child is without a father, or when a child is without a mother, or when the father and mother don't love each other. The child is messed up. And I also spent 6 years in the Ministry of Social and Family Development under Vivian Balakrishnan when I first transferred over from prisons to MSF. I was put in charge. I thought I was going upstream, because downstream prisoners messed up lives, very messed up. Actually, usually it's the family that has been messed up. And then when I went up to MSF, I thought, I'm going to do family work. I'm going to do prevention. I'm going to strengthen families. But I was put in charge of family violence, child abuse, teen delinquency, the children's homes, the boys' home, the girls' home, foster care service, the homeless. I was like, what is happening? Singapore, we have beautiful houses, but yet we have many broken homes. In fact, Minister Vivian Balakrishnan said this in a meeting. I was very impressed. In fact, I remembered, wrote it down. He said, Singaporeans do not suffer from a lack of material wealth. We suffer from poverty of relationships. It's relational poverty. We have moved away from God's design. Our hearts are supposed to be turned towards each other. We have turned against each other or turned away from each other. Now, let's look again at this ethics, sexual ethics. So, children, procreation, sex is for the pleasure. In fact, it is not a taboo thing. God created sex so that we can bind our marriage together and so that we can produce godly offspring. But as we move away from the Garden of Eden, in fact, since Adam and Eve, when God first created man and woman, created marriage, created family, we have moved very far from the Garden of Eden. Now we want the pleasure without the responsibility. I just want the sex. I don't want the child. Children is a burden, not a blessing. So pleasure without responsibility. And of course, we are very creative. We are very innovative. We create contraception, the condom, so that we don't need to have the burden. We just want to focus on the sex. Oops, pregnant how? Pregnant, get rid of the problem. It's just some tissue. Get rid of the problem. I work with a lot of fathers, Dads for Life, Elijah 7000, and over the years I met many fathers, and once in a while, when the father feels safe, he will open up to me and say, Jason, I did this in university and it's been 30 years. If I had allowed my child to live, I wonder what he or she is doing today. We can get rid of the problem, but it doesn't go away. And I would encourage, of course, this father, look for inner healing, ask God for forgiveness, seek professional help. It doesn't go away. What about pleasure without the commitment? Now it's all about consensual sex. Consent, not commitment. Consent, not covenant. You agree? I agree. One night, okay, one night. You also, next week. 2 nights, also can. As long as you're happy, I'm happy, we are all happy. Become happiness. It's man's desire rather than God's design. Pleasure without the commitment. Now, what happens when it's just pleasure without responsibility, pleasure without the commitment? We are messing up God's design. And what will that do to marriage and children? It's all about pleasure, no longer permanence. So marriage will be optional, it will be devalued. In fact, since we don't even value marriage, let's redefine it. Doesn't matter anymore. Because if this is God's design, we are going further and further away from God's design. And of course, children become optional. Now we have dogs and cats. I mean, nothing wrong with dogs and cats, but it can never replace another human person. And children become devalued because if we can get rid of the problem, then we devalue the preborn children. It becomes a product. If you want, also can. But how can 2 fathers have a child? Never mind lah. Some poor woman in some poor country, just pay her for 9 months, and when the child comes, we take the child. We don't want the mother. The child becomes a product. Marriage is redefined. And that is where the whole sexual revolution comes about. I think when we talk about sexuality, we are actually talking about family. Because Genesis 1:27-28 talks about family. It's about family. And when we move away from God's design for sexuality, we are actually hurting the institution of family. And of course, I drafted speeches like that as a civil servant before. Whenever it comes to special occasion like Chinese New Year or whatever, or Family Day. Family is the basic foundation of society. I mean, we draft it, put it into the minister's mouth, and he will say it. Family is the important building block. It is the foundation. Do we really believe it? I like the Chinese version better. Just 2 words. English version very long-winded. Family is the basic building block. Family is the foundation of society. Very long-winded. Chinese version, just 2 words. 国家. You see the word 家 inside. The 国 can only be strong when the 家 is strong. The nation can only be strong if the building blocks are strong. But is it even biblical? Did the Bible say family is the basic building block of society? Of course. It goes back to Genesis. The last part is fill the earth and subdue it. Before we even fill the earth, before we even conquer the earth or start ministries or plant the church or have a successful career, what did God say before that? He said, you are created in my image. Male and female, I created you. Be fruitful. He was talking about family. He talked about marriage and family and children. It's a bit like left leg and right leg. I can fill the earth and subdue it. I can conquer the world. But is my left leg strong? Is my marriage strong? My family strong? Do I know even if my identity is in God because He created me in His image? If my left leg is not strong, I cannot go and chiong. And I've seen a lot of CEOs, a lot of Christian leaders, they go and chiong, but the marriage is not strong. Children becoming delinquent. And sooner or later, they have to pull back. So, from Genesis chapter 1, when God created us in His image, there's a God and man relationship. Male and female is not just about gender, but also marriage, husband and wife. Be fruitful is our parents and children. Now, if the foundation of a nation is in these relationships and in this, if I'm Satan, I will attack all this, right? If I want to attack your nation, I will attack parents and children. I will attack marriage. I will attack what is male, what is female. I will make sure I confuse you whether you are man or woman. And I will attack your identity. Are you in God's image, or are you in the image of the apes? If I believe I come from animals, I will behave like animals. But it's very clear, God created us in His image. We are supposed to reflect Him, not reflect. And this is what our children are learning. Even my time. We were told to buy magazines like Times, and then what the magazine tells us, we think that Time magazine is, just because the school recommends it, that means everything they say is correct. And of course, marriage, man and woman. I'm not sure whether you remember HVMC, not a lady, but it's a website that monetizes adulterous relationships. And the tagline is actually very sexy. Life is short, have an affair. 70% of men will have an affair if they didn't get caught. And it's getting easier and easier because there's so many websites. Of course, thankfully, in 2013, 10 years ago, it almost came to Singapore, but I think there was enough Singaporeans that said, no, how can we allow a company like that to come and make money and destroy our marriages? So this company wasn't allowed to come into Singapore. But again, you don't need to set up a company here to introduce an app. In fact, of course, a lot of people put in their data, they register, they sign up, and as in any database, it will be leaked sooner or later. So there was a big hoo-ha. There was a legal suit against the company because all the database were leaked. And in one of the paragraphs, I remember reading this article. Canadian media in July, reported that 1 in 5 Ottawa residents, or nearly 200,000 people, were registered with HVMC, making the city the most infidelity-friendly in the country. This is just one city. And this is only one website, There's a few others. In fact, at the time when I was doing the research, this was the second most popular. So I don't think it was just 20% of the population. I think there's a bigger percentage. I'm not sure about you, but do we want Singapore to be known as the most infidelity-friendly country? I don't think so. And of course, I also read in another article that some of the databases came from Singapore. And I think there were 20 over email addresses ending with .moe.sg. So the moral of the story is, if you want to register with such websites, don't use your office address. Yeah. And why stop at 2? If we move away from God's design, if we keep moving away from God's design, why stop at 2? Why not 3? The more the merrier, isn't it? Since it's all about man's desire, my happiness. This was already quite some years back. Yeah, 2 men decided to divorce so that they can marry a 3rd man. And of course, they want to have children. How? The sisters volunteered to be surrogates. We have come very far from the Garden of Eden. And you think that it would never happen to a country like Singapore. Again, this was like 3-4 years ago already. In a website, there was an article, these 3 men talking about, wow, not easy to get along, 3 of us. 2 already very difficult. 3 even more difficult, right? And of course, you see the slogan, love is love, in whatever forms it takes. Now, 15 years ago, our Prime Minister in Parliament, after a debate, made some concluding remarks. Even though it's been 15 years, but I think our head of state, when a Prime Minister says something, it's always good to consider whether there's truth in it, whether there's wisdom in it. And he said, on issues of moral values, with consequences to the wider society, first, we should decide what is right for ourselves. But secondly, before we are carried away by what other societies do, I think it is wiser for us to observe the impact of radical departures from traditional norms on early movers. So radical departures from traditional norms sounds like moving away from God's design. So we will let others take the lead. We will stay one step behind the front line of change watch how things work out elsewhere before we make any irrevocable move. So basically, our Prime Minister, 15 years ago, during the first time 377A was being debated in Parliament, basically advised the whole nation, be careful. Let's watch how things work out elsewhere before we make any moves. And he didn't just say make any moves, any irrevocable. Any move is irrevocable. How are we going to go back to Garden of Eden? It seems that we are heading only in a certain direction. And I'm sure some of you, if you have traveled enough, you would have made observations. I've been to the States, I've been to Australia, I've been to Taiwan, just to observe what is happening in this particular area. And even if you don't travel, you will watch videos and read the papers. I'll just show you a short video. We talk about sex education, right? You know, my dad never talked about sex with me, say that I come from the dumb, you know. What are parents teaching their children in some of these countries? Let's watch this short video.
Ally. E is for buy. C is for coming out. D is for drag. E is for equality. F is for family. Uh-oh, we missed a page. G is for gay. H is for hope. I is for intersex. J is for joy. K is for cookie. L is for lesbian. M is for Latin. N is for non-binary. O is for orientation. Very good. P is for hands. Q is for I don't know what Q. That's okay. Q is for queer. Queer. R is for respect. S is for sachet. Sachet. T is for trans. Good. U is for unique. V is for vogue. You know how to vogue? Yeah. You do? Yeah. That was pretty good. Okay, turn the page. W is for wonder. X is for X. Y is for U. And Z is for zest. Zest. And what was the name of this book? The Gay BCs. You like this book? Yes. Are you a woke toddler? Yes. Can you say, I'm woke? I'm woke.
I'm sure you know, if you read the papers, watch the news, Disneyland is no longer what it was before. A lot of the cartoons, Netflix, etc., we do really have to be careful in what we expose our children to. At the end, children suffer. Let's go back to what our Prime Minister said 15 years ago. Of course, some of you will say that, well, 377 is gone. Why do we still want to talk about what our PM said? But I think there's a lot of truth there. It's like the Bible. The world is getting worse and worse, but we still look at the Bible for guidance, right? So I think what our PM said 15 years ago is still very relevant. In fact, he said, so we will let others take the lead, we will stay one step behind the front line of change. But my advice would be, one step behind the front line of change is actually not good enough, because other countries take 10 steps, we're going to take 9. If they take 100 steps, we're going to take 99 steps. So staying one step behind the front line of change, I think is not good enough. But what does God say? In fact, I found a passage in the Bible, and it seems that whoever drafted PM's speech at the time paraphrased from the Bible passage. Let me show you the passage. Leviticus 18, the first 5 verses. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. I am the Lord your God, so do not act like the people in Egypt, where you used to live, or like the people of Canaan, where I'm taking you. So what was God saying to the people through Moses? Basically, don't follow other countries. And he says, you must obey all my regulations and be careful to obey my decrees, for I am the Lord your God. If you obey my decrees and my regulations, you will find life through them. I am the Lord. Now let me explain the second part of these few verses. How many of you are parents? Parents, okay, great. Do you have a time where one of your children came to you and said, Mommy, how come cannot? How come all my friends can? How come I cannot? How come? Mommy, how come? No fun, man. What will Mommy say? Ask Daddy. Daddy, how come cannot? All my friends can, how come they can? How come I cannot? My cousin, how come I cannot? How come everybody can? My classmates can, how come you cannot? How come? What would Daddy say? Ask Mommy. If Daddy is smart, Daddy will say, ask Pastor. Pastor, how come cannot? How come other people can? You're Christians, everything cannot. How come? What will Pastor say? Ask God, yes. Then you go to the Bible, right? Bible, how come cannot? Bible, how come cannot? If we ask God, thankfully, sometimes God gives answers, especially if He knows that we need those answers. What is the answer? It's in red. If you obey my decrees and my regulations, you will find life. What's the opposite of life? Death. Remember I talked about ethical boundaries, sexual boundaries? There are linesmen, there's a referee, there are lines, there is a ref. If we say, I don't want, well, you don't follow, then you will land up in chaos. Those boundaries are for our good. There are physical laws. When God created heavens and earth, there are physical laws. One of the physical laws is law of gravity. If you want to defy the law of gravity, yeah, I don't believe in the law of gravity. I will suffer the consequences. But when God created man and woman, there are moral laws. And these are some of the moral laws. If we defy the moral laws, which are meant for our good, then we will mess up ourselves and the rest of society. Now, let me explain further, because I'm a visual person. So God's design, God created man and woman. God said, be fruitful. You see, I put 4 children. Singaporeans not fruitful enough. And then it's not just about the institution of marriage and family. It's also about relationships. I think last 2 weeks we talked about relationship, marriage relationship, family relationships. Our hearts are supposed to turn towards each other. That's how you have a strong family. Of course, some of us may be called to be single. It is also good. But if you are called to be married and have children, then when we move away from God's design, then we don't have enough children. Our hearts are turned away from each other. We are busy. I'm distracted. Maybe work, sometimes even ministry. Or we turn against each other. As I mentioned to you, I spent 6 years dealing with family violence, child abuse cases. We move away from God's design. What about pornography? The new drug today is pornography. We objectify each other. God created you in order to satisfy my visual desires. No. I remember when I was a student, one of the speakers said, don't let the devil in you destroy the Jesus in your sister. I said, whoa. Because all the relationships were breaking up, especially boys, break up with the girl will go to a corner and cry. So basically there was a harsh word from the leader to all the boys. Don't let the devil in you destroy the Jesus in your sister. Of course, now even porn is the other way around. We objectify each other. And then, of course, premarital relationships. Yeah, why wait until married? Consent. You consent, you're happy, I'm happy, everybody happy. And then, of course, after marriage, sexual relationships outside of marriage. It's not just the man doing it, the wife also doing it. Now, up to this point, you realize I have not even talked about the LGBT issue. It's about heterosexual brokenness. Now I actually mentor those who struggle with same-sex attraction, even gender dysphoria. Usually they look at me and say, you're also what? I say, that's true. Even the heterosexuals are equally broken. We are all fallen short of God's glory, whether heterosexuals or same-sex attracted. And of course, when all this happens, this will grow. same-sex attracted couples will start to grow. And then, of course, demand for rights, etc. And then pedophilia. And now people are claiming that there is a gene, it's genetic. I'm born to be attracted to little children. If I'm born this way, what can you do? And of course, why stop at 2? Why not 3? Throuple. Why not 4? And of course, bestiality. Now, just in case you think it's not happening, there was a country some years back, they actually have motels where they sell sex with animals. But it was stopped. Not because of morality, but because of animal rights. Yeah. Nothing to do with moral. It has to do with rights, human rights, animal rights. Of course, if we follow God's design, there are blessings, right? If we deviate from God's design, there will be curses. But if I talk to my friends who are not Christians or my colleagues who are not Christians, I go to the public square, I cannot use words like blessing and curses because those who are not believers, who don't read the same Bible, don't believe in the same God, they say, your Christians are always blessing, always curses. You go back to the church. But does it mean they have nothing to say? No, I have a lot of things to say. But how do I say it? I say it like, benefits. Right? Lots of children got benefits, right? Dads for life got benefits, right? Strong marriage got benefits, right? And then don't use curses, use words like costs and consequences. Family violence, there are a lot of consequences. Many children's homes in Singapore. Pornography, there are consequences. Extramarital relationships. Pregnant how? Divorce, the child grow up. In fact, I know of a lot of young people, they don't want to get married because they look up. I know of at least 2 or 3 over the years, they openly told me, why do I want to get married? I don't want to end up like my mom and dad. I don't want to end up like my mom and dad. And of course, then homosexuality, homosexual acts, HIV, monkeypox, etc., etc. There are consequences. Let me find another way to explain this. My daughter loves to go shopping with me. Do you know why? Because I pay. Not only do I pay, I will tell her, why buy one? Buy 2 lah. 1 red, 1 blue or whatever. But my daughter has a very good habit. Whenever she buys something expensive, like there's a prom night, there's a party, and she needs to buy an expensive dress, she'll take and she'll check, make sure no hole, no extra string, right? And then the other thing she will do is she will go home, she will ask our helper, the maid, and ask her to please wash carefully. You must follow the designer's instructions. The designer who designed the dress will advise how to best take care of the dress. The designer who designed this body, the designer who designed marriage and family, has given us designer's instructions. It is meant for our benefits. It's meant to bless us. It's meant to give us life. And of course, life is never perfect. That's where God is a redemptive God. There is second chance. My marriage is struggling, seek help. Come before the Lord. If I'm struggling with porn, seek help. And I think the call that God has for us, especially the church, every nation is going down. Every nation is going down the slippery slope, moving further and further away from the Garden of Eden, from God's design. And Singapore is not spared. This slide was done, I think, a few years ago. I need to update it. I think Singapore is not at 5 anymore. I think Singapore has gone down to 6 after what happened in the recent months. And of course, other countries have gone down further. What is God's call? Go back to God's design. We have to take the lead. If we believe marriage is important, we need to model it. If we believe that fathers are important for the children, fathers rise up. If we believe that family is important, then we need to do what we can to strengthen families. We need to go back to God's design and show the way. Now, I'm going to deep dive into this issue for the next few minutes. because it's a topic is not talked about enough, I think. I can talk about adultery, I can talk about pornography today, I can talk about extramarital affairs, I can talk about all the others, but I thought this is a topic that I would like to spend a bit more time on. How do we respond to the LGBT issue? Over the last 10 years, I have studied the issue, and this diagram has helped me a lot. There are 4 different groups of people. One are the activists. Some of them are very militant. In their mind, it's like, I don't need help, you need help. I don't need to change, you need to change. I want to change the whole of society, change the legislation, change the laws. Of course, then we need to engage them. Then there are moderates. I met some of them reach out to me even. Moderates are those that are happy living their life. They may want to get married overseas. What do? We don't reject, we befriend, we are friends. It's just like somebody of another religion, totally different worldview. Just because you are of a different worldview, you are of a different religion, doesn't mean I cannot be your friend, right? We can still be friends, right? We can still eat char kway teow, right? If we love char kway teow, right? And there's always a group who is struggling. They need someone to walk with, someone to support them. They may need counseling, they may need prayers, they need ministry. And there will be the overcomers. Been there, done that, and has overcome. They have powerful testimonies. But they also need friends. They also need a community. When I look at this, I think some of you remember I mentioned early part in my intro, I worked in the prisons before, I worked with child abuse cases before, drug addicts before, gangs before. It's quite similar. If you talk about there's a growing drug problem, then I can identify 4 groups. One group is drug traffickers. They want to sell drugs. They want to get young people to take drugs. There's a group who are moderates. They've been taking drugs and they're very happy. Solve my problem. Help me to de-stress. There's a group who are struggling, taking drugs, want to get out, want to leave their drug-taking behavior. Overcomers, extra addicts, powerful testimonies. Let's say there's a growing gang problem. Activists would be like the gangsters want to recruit gang members into their gangs. These are the Salakau, Sarah Jambo. The moderates are those who are in a gang. They are rejected by the family, they don't have a home to go back to, they feel alone. Then there's a gang. So they join the gang, they're very happy. It's a sense of belonging. This is where I belong. We're all Salakau, we're all 2-4, whatever, all the tattoos. It's they're strugglers. They are in a gang, they want to get out of the gang. They want to renounce the gang. They want to leave their gang. Then we need to come alongside. That's why prison ministry, drug ministry are so important. And then there are the ex-gangsters, the overcomers. They go around sharing their testimony, mentoring others, starting halfway houses. Similar. So if we work with the struggling group, some of them will become overcomers. Of course, if we befriend the moderates, some of them will move over. Especially, once they have HIV, when they realize that it is not what they are seeking for. There was a time I was listing out all this was some years back already, the activists in Singapore, or the pink dot activists, or whatever, I was listing them out. I was getting ready to pray against them. I was driving, and then I heard a voice, and God asked me, Jason, can Saul become Paul? Can Saul become Paul? Can? Can, right? Jesus appeared in front of Saul. In fact, Saul went around persecuting the Christians, murdering them even. But God, in His mercy, appeared in front of Saul, and Saul became Paul. That means from activists become overcomer, bypass moderate, bypass strugglers, go straight to collect $200. That's monopoly. And so now, instead of praying against anybody, we pray for them. Everyone needs Jesus, right? Everyone needs to be set free. Now, just on the left side, what do we do? I can give a long workshop on doing advocacy, but I think this is important. Discrimination, because once you start talking about it, you will be say you are discriminatory, you're homophobic, you're bigoted. Now, I don't discriminate against anybody, but I discriminate against what a person does. And it's okay, meaning I accept everyone, but I may not accept what a person does, or what a person believes in, or what the person is advocating for. The person and the practice, we need to separate the two. Example, you're smoking. I don't think that's a good idea. Can you stay there? Then, let's say I'm an apek, I'm smoking. You say, hey, how come you discriminate against me? How come you don't allow me to sit at the table? You give a special table for me. You're discriminatory. I say, apek, I'm not discriminating against you. It's the smoking that I'm discriminating. I have a couple of brothers who smoke. I love them. Just that when you're smoking, please don't come into the house. Right? We discriminate against the actions, the choices, the behavior, not the person. The other thing is this, disagreeing with someone doesn't mean we are discriminating against that person. It's okay to disagree. Doesn't mean I'm discriminating against you. For example, let's say, this is a real situation. I sat down with someone and this person is a lesbian and she said, I have another lesbian friend and we're going to adopt a child. I said, but the child needs a father. So instead of saying, yeah, a child needs a father and a mother, her response was, you're also you're divorced, then the child without a father, without a mother. It's like two wrongs become a right. Now what if a father say, two fathers want to have a child? I say, I disagree with that because a child needs a father and mother. So I disagree with the idea. Because where to get a child? The father has to go somewhere, get a poor woman, pay the woman for 9 months, and then take the child but reject the mother. Basically, we are raising children who are fatherless or motherless. And that, I would disagree. Now, let's talk about the right side. And I will end with the right side. Because there are always strugglers. There are people whom we may know who are struggling. And in the church, this was a survey done by Focus on the Family a few years ago. I think the data is still relevant. 1 to 3% identify as LGBT in our churches. If your church is big enough, you will find them. But they may not come out because the environment may not be safe for them to come out. I remember there was a young man who wanted to come out to the cell group, the live group. He was like gathering his courage to share, and before he could share, one of them told a gay joke. Everybody laughed. And they said, oh, I don't think it's safe enough for me to come out to share. Now, the problem with the data is this. In overseas, in US, the Gallup study shows that young people 20 years and below, 20% of them identify as LGBT. The boomer generation, the old people like myself, only 1 to 3%. So what is happening? Is it born this way? No, it's environmental. It's what they're exposed to. I know of a detransitioner in Singapore, joined a trans group, and he was being pushed. He said, go and change, go operate, go and take hormones. And finally, he transitioned. A man became a woman, dressed up as a woman. After some months, he realized that it was not what he was seeking for. It was all a lie. And he started to detransition. And what he went through to help him was he went through trauma therapy. He discovered that when he was young, he was sexually abused twice. One of them dressed him up as a woman, or rather dressed him up as a girl and sexually abused him. And he was growing up, the father was more nurturing towards the sister, treated him like a boy. Of course, he's a boy, but he needed the nurturing as well. So when he saw the father being nurturing towards the sister, he thought at the age of 6 years old that, oh, if I'm a girl, my father will love me more. So that was what happened to him. And when he went through the trauma therapy, he got over his gender dysphoria, and now he's living as a man. I've been mentoring quite a few people over the last 10 years, and Raphael, who will be coming in 2 weeks' time, was a mentee of me. Now, I'm not the only person that mentored him. There are others who have also mentored him. But this is his story. Since he's coming in 2 weeks' time, the timing is just perfect. Let me introduce Raphael. He wouldn't mind me talking about him because he will talk about himself 2 weeks' time. Let's watch this video. The first time I met him, he told me, I Googled you last night. He has to check me out. Let's watch. This is already a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago already. So, how are you, Raphael? Haven't seen you for a while.
Work's a bit busy, yeah, but it's been enjoyable. How about you?
Well, life's been good too. I've been busy giving talks and doing some mentoring. You know, come to think of it, it's been close to 4 years since we started our mentoring journey. And I still remember you were a very different person when I first met you.
Really? Different in what way?
I still remember when you first met me, you were skeptical, cynical, yeah, sensitive, but yeah, you're a different man now.
So before I met you, I was, 10 years ago. I think I shared with you before that I used to identify as gay, and I was pursuing my gay desires, looking for relationships, struggling with sexual encounters as well, falling into that. So I think 10 years of that, I struggled a lot. It didn't give me the kind of happiness and joy that I thought I wanted. I came across many different kinds of arguments, and I guess I began to change my mind. I used to think I was born gay. Yeah. So when I was convinced that pursuing my gay desires was not what will bring me true peace and joy, yeah, I wanted to look for a mentor.
It was fear and trembling, I must say. I've never mentored someone like yourself before. I mean, I remember the time where I think I must have pressed the wrong button and you looked at me and said, y'all said love the sinner, hate the sin, but where's the love? And I could feel the pain. You were crying out, and I realized at that time how, as a Christian community, we have really not done enough to reach out, to support, and to walk with somebody like yourself.
I guess looking back, I would really characterize our mentoring journey as you having showed me the love of a father in ways that I really would have wanted when I was growing up. And so when you came into my life, you really showed me that kind of fatherly love. Yeah, and I remember that night when I called you up because I wanted to go for a HIV test, and I was really scared. But I remember your response was, "No, I'm your mentor. I should go with you."
When I received the call on that night, I was really worried. You asked for prayer. I thought, no prayer is something that I can do, but I need to be there for you. I remember when I walked into the clinic, I said, wow, so many young men, and none of them had a father or a mentor or someone with them. They were all coming in and out on their own. I was so glad you came up to me and say, it's negative, and you also said that I will never come back here again.
I guess something that really helped along the way was that you played more than a little part. I mean, I think if not for you, and if not for other people in the church who came to walk alongside me, I would still be back then struggling with all those brokenness and unable to, I guess, find the peace that I was looking for. Yeah, so I really want to thank you for the love that you showed me. I think you showed me really like what true love is. Like, you showed me that true love is unconditional. It is patient. True love is kind. It doesn't encourage what is bad. I mean, I'm sure there were many moments when, out of fear of hurting my feelings, you could have just said nothing when I wanted to pursue a gay relationship, or when I fell into sexual encounters, you didn't have to say anything, But you showed me that true love is a love that dared to speak the truth, and you spoke into those situations with love, and with patience, and with understanding, and I think that just is something that moves me and floors me to this day. You and the church community, and demonstrating, embodying, I guess, that kind of love to me. Yeah, so I really want to thank you. Without you, I would not have been where I am today. I would not have found the kind of joy, the happiness, the peace that I was looking for all those 10 years. So thank you. Thanks for being my mentor and being a father figure to me.
God is good, isn't it? You know, he was my first mentee. I remember I didn't know how to reach out to someone like that, and I was in church. I was just praying, and I heard God say, "Be Jesus to him." And not easy to be Jesus. And sometimes he tell me about his one-night stand and his, I was like, sometimes I feel like falling off the chair. But whenever he share about our testimony, he will say, Jason has that counselor face. Not easy to keep that straight face and just smile, say, oh, he's telling me always one-night stand. And then the night when he told me that he feel weak and he might have HIV, I said, I think you should go for a test. He said, yeah, I'm planning to go tomorrow. I said, I will join you. I will be there for you. He said, no, cannot, Jason, you cannot come. I said, how come you cannot come? I'm your mentor. He said, your Yellow Ribbon Project, that's for life. Everybody will recognize you. Wondering what are you doing in the Kelantan Lane Clinic where they have all these tests. I said, no, I need to be there with you. And when I was there, all the young men coming in and out, no one has another person accompanying him. But thankfully, Raphael came out of this whole challenging journey and he went for his diploma in counseling, finished his master's in counseling end of last year, and now he's a counselor with Indigo & Co. He's married with 2 young children. I'll leave him to tell his story in 2 weeks' time. So I encourage you to come and attend, because from his training, you'll be able to walk with other people like him. That is his mission. He wants to help the church to walk with people like himself. Lastly, if we have no love, no compassion, and no truth, we are irrelevant. We are uncommitted. If we have lots of love and compassion and grace, but we have no truth, then that's being very permissive. It's like parents telling the children, as long as you're happy, do whatever you want. Now, that is not a very loving thing to do. If we are full of truth, we know what the Bible says, but we have no love, we will come across as judgmental and hypocritical. We need to be what Jesus is to us, full of grace and truth, full of love and truth, full of compassion and truth. And that will be able to heal and restore. I want to tell you a last story. You know, Raphael, at one time, he was depressed because he would go through up and down. And he was suicidal. And then he was just crossing the road, and so the green man, the red traffic light, and the car screeched to a halt. And he turned because the car came so near to him. And he turned and he saw on the windscreen, there was the Dads for Life car decal. Then he looked at his, so he was crossing the road. Oh, Jason Wong, my mentor, Dads for Life. In the middle of the road, he heard a voice from heaven, I will be your dad for life. God spoke to him that God will be his dad for life. By the time he reached the other side of the road, he was in tears, knowing that God will walk with him in his lowest of moments. I want to share with you because you may not be struggling with same-sex attraction or gender dysphoria, but our marriage may not be doing so well. Our children may have turned away. I may be struggling with some other issues related to family relationships. But God is a redemptive God. God will always restore. God will always redeem. God will always heal. There's always second chance. God bless you.
Brothers and sisters, would you go with the peace of our Lord? Go knowing that He loves you and He brings healing even to the most broken of persons and relationships. So would you go knowing that God loves you and holds you and your family in the palm of His hands, that He will bring blessing and provision to you as you walk in obedience and faithfulness to His word and design. And so go, and may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God the Father, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you now and forevermore. Amen. Please be seated. The service is over. If you'd like someone to pray with you, do come to the front to this corner, and someone will journey with you in prayer. God bless you. Have a great week ahead.